later on to kind of explain better this advisory and what it means, not just to physicians, but to parents of kids out there. Pretty important stuff. Was released last night, and we're just trying to sort it all out this morning. 7:34. Let's head into the KUAM News Zoom room. He's here every week for the Minority Report. Minority Leader, Senator Chris Duenas. Good morning, Senator.
Hi, good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina, and good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
So still no
Yeah, still no plan. Let's kind of start there because there was a big meeting, Zoom, with Congressman Michael Snicolas and Senator Jim Moylan and was it Mayor's Council President?
That's correct. Yeah, my other partner, who's on here regularly, I think on Mondays as well, Jesse, Mayor Alec, and Chris and Bree and Jason, I think that probably this is the way to do it, is to just basically go out there, push the envelope, talk about what we believe to be priorities, what we believe and we know at least. I know Senator Moylan has really gone over the ARP, guidelines with the congressman in quite a bit in detail. So he felt compelled, and I think he's doing a great job in terms of getting that message out. Obviously the administration's responding now. I was actually kind of surprised to see, Ed Byrne basically give him a compliment. Thanks for pushing the envelope. We'll get the information out there. But then was saying that, got to be a little cautious with this community, funding. And so at least we're talking about it, right? And then, of course, you got Senator Frank Blas Jr. too, really pushing the envelope on the issue of helping tourism. Over a month ago, Senator Frank Blas held a meeting with a number of senators, myself included, and the group that's pushing forward, led by Dave Tidinko, on trying to make sure that we shore up and save these tourism companies that are optional tours that are basically shuttered and in danger of basically just closing forever. So that seems to have pushed the envelope. We know that they had a meeting with the governor. It was relatively favorable. There's a discussion on what the final matching funding might be in terms of some discussions with the legislature. So, guys, it looks like the progress being made here is really just by being aggressive from the legislature side. And I want to thank Senator Moylan and Senator Frank Blas Jr. for introducing resolutions, getting on and doing, Facebook presentations to really, get the word out. We want to see the plan and we want to see action in terms of helping our people.
Right. It's been very easy for people to be critical of the governor relative to this American Rescue Plan because, they're just not saying anything. It's weird. They had the money since May, and Congressman Snicolas, you're right, he's done a great job of sitting there and kind of like detailing all the things that you can do with the American Rescue Plan. And a lot of the things that he's detailing doesn't really seem like the administration is going to do them. He's talking about the premium pay for workers, because the American Rescue Plan, the intent of it is to rescue us, right? Not necessarily build a new hospital or whatever, but it's to rescue us. And so it's, like I said, it's easy for them, and they're right. To sit there and say, hey, you can use the money for this, you can use the money for that, you can use the money for this. And I just don't get why we haven't given the mayors that money. To get that kind of infusion at the village level, it's huge. They could make all kinds of improvements where they count the most, where we live.
Exactly. Chris and Bree, and the thing is that particular component actually matches with the legislature's plan that we sent down to them. I really am going to talk to the speaker today. I think the next thing we need to push is infrastructure for Chamorro Land Trust. We know that the only solution that is viable in hand right now to try to help the most vulnerable and those who at least need to put somewhat of a substantial structure on a piece of property and be able to stave off some of this homelessness, to bring up dignity and quality of life, would be to put infrastructure immediately into Chamorro Land Trust. And so these are the kind of things, Chris, this is why, we knew that our plan wasn't perfect when the legislature came out with it, but everybody signed off on the general parameters. And so, I think maybe what we'll start doing is just taking those components out one by one and pushing the administration and saying, are you going to match our plan? Are you going to match our plan going forward? because it seems like the only way we get a reaction is to go out there and push the envelope. So for me personally, Chris, the tourism envelope's been pushed. I think they're going to get significant resources to survive. You've just talked about employment subsidies and those kind of funds. I think that's so important. That's been on the radar. I think what's also important, Chris, is what assurances we haven't got of at least the biggest part of the governor's plan is, have you gotten the hard copy on the fact that you can put that $300 million towards the hospital? And is that the wisest expenditure at this point? In some other media, we're actually kind of getting chided for the fact that, we've accelerated this priority on the reimbursement, $35 million for the hospital, $5 million for DOC. But in my opinion, guys, those are things we absolutely need. And I'm all about education too, but this was their budget request. Make sure you don't undo our maintenance of effort. The Department of Education, you guys, is the only agency right now that has hundreds of millions of dollars sitting on the side, and their team, as far as the board has been concerned, as far as the superintendent's been concerned, has been, chomping at the bit that they are all about using this money for the infrastructure improvements and deferred maintenance. Now, if there is additional resources made, and I'll tell you one thing that the Republicans really did going into this budget cycle is we proposed possibly a 3 or 6 month budget, because the administration is still touting that they have $50 million more that they have available through the what their anticipation is from the GRT. So if that's the case, and we need to go in and do some supplemental budgets, particularly with education, and now DISID's talking about they zeroed out their positions for social workers when they basically, we gave them what they requested. Public health was talking about shortfalls. We gave them what they requested. So, it's kind of a failure of planning on both sides, Chris and Bree and Jason. I mean, it's not just now that all this talk about the ARP and how it could backfill government programs and also make sure we help the private sector. No real plan there, but now we're seeing agency by agency come out and say, well, our budget's not going to work. And it's like, wait a minute, this was the request. And so let's once again go back to the drawing board if we have to, and create the plan if these shortfalls exist. Now, I certainly am not going to pick on education. I mean, that's not the point here. The point is where's the shortfall? Is it special funds? Is it the fact that you're not getting your allotments? We need to drill this down, because education does have to be a priority, but we also have to come to the table, and I'm also going to work with the oversight. I think oversight chair, I think we need to convene, a meeting here soon, an oversight, or at least a roundtable with education, because if this has been the proclamation that the budget is short, then we need to go back to the drawing board.
Has any other government agency stepped forward to say, hey, we got a shortfall as well? That you're aware of?
Not yet, but the way the trickle's coming out, I mean, it seems almost inevitable. And here's another thing, a lot of the times when we talked about, particularly with public safety, because we put a lot of money towards customs, because we wanted to make sure that they could stand up their manpower and also deal with the fact that they're not getting the resources they used to get based on, the airlines and that type of funding that comes in based on employments coming into Guam. And so we made sure we took care of that. At every public health or public safety agency we talked to, police, fire, and the rest, basically said, we have budgeted vacancies that we can't even fill right now. So that's one of the reasons why we said, well, if you've got 40 and 50 budgeted vacancies from retirements, resignations, otherwise separations, fill those, and there's your manpower there. And if you need more, come back. And so that's why most of us felt comfortable that things were stable with regard to all of these priorities. But if this continues, then each chairperson needs to basically reconvene, because if you look at the speaker, and I agree with her, every time health agencies and other agencies are saying they're short, she's saying, what's going on here? This is what you requested.
Yeah.
Governor said you were going to get money from ARP. All these plans to ramp up social workers. I know that we've had DYA on with Ms. Brannon and others, saying that this is our problem. We've tackled it by going in and taking care of the caseloads, but now we need to really ramp up social workers. So that's all been on our radar too. But we just need to maybe have a little bit more, forthrightness coming here, and the oversight chairs are going to have to step up and start addressing this if this continues. That we get blamed for a shortfall when we passed a budget that was based on the request.
I just totally saw this coming. In like eye roll.
So
the guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's like all the different agencies that came into the legislature for the budget, and they said, okay, we only need, for example, public health, whatever the number may be. Oh, we only need 10 million, and the senators were like, what, you only need 10 million? Are you crazy? That's not even enough. And then they're like, oh, basically, don't worry, we're getting all this American Rescue Plan funding from the governor. That's what they said like during the budget process. But now that the budget bill has become law, the ink isn't even dry on it, and now they're saying like, oh, the legislature shorted us, what are we going to do?
Right.
Silly.
And the thing is
what are we going to do?
One of the reasons why I'm concerned, and I agree with several of our senators on the Republican side that, while I have supported the chairman on a number of these bills for the EITC, the anticipated EITC reimbursement from tax year 2020, we may have to just scratch that, put those bills on the shelf and say, look, this might be our nest egg for the supplemental budget. And also, I just wanted to tell you, many Republicans are bringing up during the hearings on these EITC bills that are for supposed fiscal year 2020, not the one we just passed in the 22 budget. I asked, and many of us asked, but my poignant question to the chairman was, will you please write a letter to the congressman, to BBMR, and to Rev and Tax to once and for all make the statement on the record, did this EITC reimbursement come in tax year 2020? If that's the case, we disagree with BBMR. It's that nest egg there, that amount of money is subject to appropriation because it's a reimbursement for something that we already paid out in fiscal year 21. So I'm waiting for that confirmation, Chris and Bree, because I think that's going to be important. Because if that didn't start in tax year 20, then these bills have no funding source. But even if it did start in fiscal year, in tax year 20, and we're expecting 55 million, then I don't know that this will be the proper expenditure of those funds if agencies continue to say that they're short.
What a mess.
But hey, we'll be in session next week.
Yeah.
And we have, once again, touting my colleagues, we have a number of bills coming up. There's a real effort to make sure that we take care of the issues associated with the adoption agencies that were incorporated into public health. I know there's some back and forth on that, but I think if we all pull in the same direction and basically see that the wisdom of making sure that, the bills that have been put forward, if there are issues on either side, make amendments. That's exactly what happened in the last procedure when it came, I think there's 4 particular areas where there's been duplicate bills introduced in this legislature. If I'm just going from memory now, I know that there's been issues with regard to permanizing the tax cuts for small businesses. And then of course the fun and adventures one through the budget process, which was the RISE Act. And we ended up, overriding the veto on one of those bills. So there's been some. And then also the program for the MNUMCO in terms of the opportunities for those to receive war claims. There was 2 bills on that, and so the bill was amended that hit the floor, and I think it's going to do what it was supposed to do. So I think if we all just pull together and get that done, we'll be able to walk away with something that serves our children, which that should be the main focus. How are we going to take care of these kids, especially in the situation we're in right now? Public health continues to tout, terrible numbers, guys. Let's keep talking about this. I'm really kind of ashamed, to be honest with you, the numbers that I'm seeing of children that are needing foster care. that are needing to stay with other families because of some of the situations that's going on the island. And, let's focus on the kids, because I would hate to see any baby or any child for that matter, but particularly infants, to be bounced around when they can go into a loving home. We like to tout our successes. We like to tout a lot of the good things we do, and we do great things on Guam, and I love our people, but I'm very concerned about this situation with our children. It's unacceptable, guys. I believe you have to agree with me on that one.
Of course.
Yeah, but I also don't think we need to rush down this path with this adoption agency. Definitely got to take our time and do it right with these measures that you guys are working on.
I agree. And I think, that talking about it, regardless of it, if it's agitating, regardless of whether there's differences on the approach, that's the legislative process. That's how we get this done, right? If you have a problem with one bill or a problem with the other bill, sit down and hash it out. That's what the people elected us to do. And I agree with you, Chris. I agree with you, Bree. But, this also isn't rocket science. There is a process to be put in place here to make sure that there's accountability in this system and we take care of our children. You're absolutely right. But we also have to get down and do the work. That's what we were put here to do.
What do you think about this original landowner issue of the property where the governor's proposing to build this $1 billion healthcare complex? Thoughts on that?
Once again, at least from my perspective, and I think many in our group have expressed this as well, we are on board with the way the speaker has made the presentation in terms of first of all, being the oversight on land, and this family now that has come forward, and I expect many other families to come forward and basically state that that if they weren't compensated, or saying they weren't compensated, at least this first family, this has to be resolved, Chris and Bree. I mean, why would you want to take the success of a financing mechanism that has just passed, that has paved the way to deal with this, craziness of a hospital in complete disrepair, and not sort out this issue? We believe that, I believe, and most of us believe, that the original landowners have the first right here. Now, I don't know whether it was your news organization, but I have heard a report somewhere that finally we've heard a little bit of information from the Ancestral Lands Commission that their belief is, under this lease agreement setup, families who original landowners basically go into the land bank, or become part of the land bank.
Yeah, that was us.
I don't know that that's going to cut it with most of the families, unless you address it straight away. I mean, is it area for area? Is it value for value? If they're not part of the process of your deal that you're making with the federal government, then, that's a disservice. So I think the speaker is absolutely right here, and I think that the administration needs to take this head on. Don't put this issue on the back burner and try to just plow through it and say, I got a lease agreement, get out of the way, we're building our facility. I think that's the wrong way to do things, and I think that's a situation where we're setting ourselves up, to invest all of this energy and time in a situation that could really become litigious and basically spiral. And we're going to lose precious time if we don't square this away, or say, what is plan B, what is plan C. It's kind of interesting listening to the landowners during your interview, Chris and Bree, when they're basically saying, even they believe there are alternatives. And they're in a situation where they're saying, compensate us, move on with whatever you got to do. But even they, from their perspective, say, not sure that this is the area, there are other opportunities. So this is not, in my opinion, a time or an issue to get our feet dug in on. I think this is a time for proper communication, proper conversations, and especially for the Ancestral Lands Commission to be more clear and get a hold of these families. Bring them in.
Yeah, I know.
Have a meeting with them.
Senator, I don't understand why we're talking about this now. I just feel like it's like cart before the horse. If they had this desire, and it's been clear, I mean, if you just follow the story that they have selected Eagles Field right off the bat. And, you know, this cursory look at these other locations, I don't know. I feel like it's just for show. But if you decided that you're going to build it there and you know anything about Guam's history and the history of land takings and original landowners, why wouldn't you first research who were the original landowners and go to them instead of letting it turn into this issue where it's like, we're going to build this new hospital and we're going to build an Eagles Field no matter what. Oh, wait a second. There's original landowners? Huh? Yeah, I just don't understand. It's disrespectful, frankly, to the original landowners and their heirs.
Yeah, I believe that too. And I think the thing is that especially when, and that's why I think that particularly, you know, the landowners that have come forward on your program, I mean, you could tell they were especially hurt by that because they were like, wait a minute, when I watched, you know, when they watched the governor say on TV, I've done my research and landowners have been compensated, and they're, you know, you can imagine how that feels when you're sitting at your house watching a newscast and it's like, no, I know that's not true. My dad's sitting right next to me. He's 91 years old. Yeah. He tells me straight up, show me the check stub, because there was nothing presented to me or my family, and that the land that my father gave to me to try to take care of my family. And look at that family now, Chris and Bree, they are on Chamorro Land Trust. You know, simply because they're deemed as being landless, and now there's a deal going on with the government. And you know, look at this, right, Chris and Bree, I mean, they could have been part of that. If they truly are part of the land bank, even if compensated, right? I mean, if they truly are part of the land bank and that's the exchange, well, then they should have been brought in a long time ago. Once this thing started, and say, notice to all families. I mean, Chamorro land, ancestral lands, they have these records. They know the families that were original landowners in all of these places that are identified as military properties. They've done land registration for a lot of these properties that have been returned. So they know the original landowners. And so, you know, that's something that as a government, we have to stand up and be responsible for, and move forward and contact these families and work with them.
And Senator, can you just clarify, the bill that was signed by the governor, Bill 121, did it specifically say that this new $1 billion healthcare complex has to be built in Eaglesfield, Mangilao?
No.
Okay.
In fact, that's one thing that we had them take out. That's why this bill went to, you know, that this bill has been to committee twice, and I believe there was at least 2 to 3 public hearings on it, and 2, you know, full hearings committee of the whole. One thing a lot of us said from the beginning that we wanted to make sure, and that's why we were talking to bond counsel, many of us were calling Gita, you know, saying we want this bill to be a financing mechanism. We want this to be a build, operate, transfer, because we've already seen enough in terms of lack of maintenance in the government of Guam, putting hundreds of millions of dollars into facilities. And, you know, for me, it's no mas. You know, you look at the schools that are currently under leaseback, they're in great shape. Kids are going there every day, have a proper environment to learn, maintenance is done, no questions asked, right? Simon Sanchez is on track for that too. But no, Bree, there's nowhere in 121 that says this complex is to be built on Eagles Field. We basically said, you know, my advice to most of the senators and even those that were kind of, you know, testifying on the legislation, were saying, you know, you're dooming it from the beginning when you make that declaration straight away, because, you know, you don't know that that's actually going to be, you know, feasible. And if you did that, you'd probably be in a position where you'd have to go back in and you know, amend the bill, and that creates a whole new process.
All right, but I mean, if that's where the governor wants it, that's what everybody's going to make happen. So
yeah, but I think at some point what happens is, you know, the legislature will have to get involved, because you're going to have a situation whereby if there's an impasse, you know, the Chamorro Land Trust, you know, although you know, the Ancestral Lands Commission, excuse me, although under the purview, of course, of the executive branch and you know, but it is actually a standalone as well. I mean, it really is supposed to be run like CLTC through its board, and through its executive director and the like. But at some point, it's the legislature that actually does final land approvals. Now, while this is intergovernmental between the federal government and the local government represented by the governor, if you have a question with original landowners, then the legislature is still involved, because the legislature is really the last say on land. And so as long as original landowners continue to make their case, then as far as I'm concerned, the legislature is involved.
Yeah, but good luck with that. You've
Yeah.
got a Democrat-controlled legislature that will do whatever the governor wants them to do.
Yeah.
I think we'll have to bring back Polly and do some more prayers.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Senator.
Hey, thanks. Always appreciate it. Looking forward to, I guess you guys will be reporting soon on a number of bills put on for potential for session agenda. So look for that. Like I said, the issues with public health and adoption. I think Senator Ada is going to try to get his bill on with regard to drug testing requirement for employees severing from the government. That's a great bill. So the team's been working hard, and thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, Senator. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator.
Have a great day.
You too. There you go, Senator Chris Duenas with the Minority Report. We do it every week. Get on the speaker, get on him to get their perspective. It's 8 o'clock on the Breeze side. We're KUAM FM in Agotnia, Guam. The link continues next. We're going to KU.